better or for worse, Bibi just couldn't figure out where he was. And Bibi was dumber and Sinwar was smarter. He tricked Israel.
Here's the question of the century. Has the deep state, the globalist cabal, the cult elites, the leadership class, whatever you want to call them, always been this sloppy at messaging and cover-up? So, at the end of the day, did Hamas really wake the world up to the satanic grip choking the life out of humanity? Welcome back to another episode of Political Newbie. I am Noah Clark, and this is a space for newbies to politics like me, an average citizen waking up from a dream and trying to make sense of the mess that I find myself in, and I thank you for joining me. The first thing I want to start off by saying is I am so sorry for being gone for so long, and I totally owe you an explanation. So a few weeks ago, a very close in-law of mine had an incident that culminated in a near-death experience that was a massive shakeup for the tiny world that I live in, while simultaneously I found myself free-falling down the darkest of rabbit holes, plural, and I can tell you that these rabbit holes are properly designed to nullify newbies like me. I definitely stumbled upon some really deep, dark stuff that I was not prepared for, and it was awful. And it has to do with pedophilia. Yeah, all of this pedophilia stuff I think is very hard for the average mind to wrap their heads around, like how satanic and entrenched all of this stuff is. And you can't even, there is no word to describe how evil this stuff is. There really isn't. And from my perspective, it all comes back to October 7th and the mass awakening that ensued. An awakening larger and more effective than any other awakening in human history, I think. I don't know. You tell me, but it seems that way from my perspective. Hey you, if you made it this far and you're liking this video, you probably forgot to leave me a thumbs up. So this is your reminder, leave me a thumbs up so we could push this message out. Thank you so much, you're the best. It cannot be overstated how insane the world has gotten since October 7th and what the Palestinian people have had to sacrifice in order to wake the world up to the demonic entity that has possessed and destroyed their civilization since the creation of Israel. By the way, which was planned way before 1948, way before World War II. Zionist Jews and Zionist Christians were planning the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. No one can argue that Zionism was not a genocidal project from the jump, because in 1901 the Jewish National Foundation was established with the explicit purpose of displacing Palestinians and promoting ethno-national segregation. And podcaster Colonel Damo does a great job at reminding us how the economy of genocide was established at the dawn of the 20th century, while also giving us a little bit of good news about what's happening with that foundation. Take a listen.
For decades, the Jewish National Fund, the JNF, enjoyed a rare kind of immunity. An organisation with the outward appearance of a benign charity, planting trees and developing land in Israel, all while quietly playing a central role in the dispossession of Palestinians and the laundering of apartheid policies. In tandem, institutions like AIPAC in the United States and influential donors such as Sir Trevor Chin in the United Kingdom operate behind the scenes to cement Israel's impunity on the world. But the facade is cracking. Because you see, this week, the Canadian government rubber-stamped the revocation of the JNF's charitable status after 2 appeals citing violations of international law and domestic charity regulations. Days later, thousands of protesters surrounded AIPAC events in major US cities, demanding accountability for the group's role in arming and legitimizing Israel's ongoing assault on Gaza. Founded in 1901 by Theodore Herzl's World Zionist Organization, the Jewish National Fund, the JNF, was established to facilitate Jewish land acquisition in what was then Ottoman-ruled Palestine. The truth is, everything we're seeing in the here and now literally predates Israel itself by decades. The JNF's guiding principle was simple, yet devastating. Land purchased by the organisation was to be held in perpetuity for Jews only, and non-Jews, read Palestinians, would be explicitly excluded. The JNF thus became the real estate arm of Zionism, playing a central role in establishing Jewish-only settlements, displacing Palestinians, and entrenching ethno-national segregation as a foundation of state.
Ethno-national segregation as the foundation, okay? So they've had this plan to roll up in Palestine, buy up the land, plant trees, ethnically cleanse the Palestinians way before Hitler. Do not let anybody confuse you about what Zionism is. It is a satanic, genocidal, colonialist, elitist cult. That's all it is. And wherever you are, if you have Zionists in your government making policies, just know your government will be divided on domestic policies, but they will never be divided on what Zionism stands for. Whatever their focus is on making sure that Israel thrives, they are not divided on that. They are using our countries as sort of a base for their operations, and they're gutting our countries from the inside out. So in a way, Hitler Hitler was a means to an end for them. And when I say them, I have to differentiate between Zionist Jews and non-Zionist Jews because there is a difference. And you don't have to look very far to find the very stark divide between the two. Actually, Zionist Jews are anti-Semitic towards non-Zionist Jews. It's wild. I understand to a certain extent that these are things that it's so bizarre you wouldn't believe it unless you see it. But yes, Zionist Jews are anti-Semitic towards non-Zionist Jews. So yeah, don't let anybody guilt trip you by calling you an anti-Semite. Just let that name slide off your shoulders because the biggest anti-Semites are Zionists, and if anybody calls you that, call them that right back. Because clearly they're a Zionist if they're calling you an anti-Semite. For having questions, for noticing, for just calling things what it is. The good news is they cannot hide anymore. We see them. Canada was forced to revoke the charitable status of this ethnic cleansing Jewish foundation, the JNF, back in August of last year. So there are definitely winds rolling in. Benjamin Netanyahu just made a complete ass of himself in the Nelk Brothers Full Send podcast, which is a good thing. That's why we value the First Amendment so highly. We want people to show us who they really are. We want them to freely demonstrate their toxic traits so we can make our own judgments. Here's a tiny clip of that.
What's your go-to at McDonald's?
No, I'll tell you, Burger King. We did the double,
Whopper?
The double.
I haven't ripped Burger King in a long
It's
time.
not.
Burger King kind of sucks.
Yeah.
No,
The
you're wrong.
BK Lounge can hit.
I disagree completely.
You like Burger King over McDonald's?
That's your worst take, I think.
Absolutely.
That's a crazy take.
No, that was fine. I mean, I like Burger King. The answer is yes.
Yeah, that is your worst take. That's what the Nelk boys said. That is your worst take, Benjamin Netanyahu, after interviewing him for an hour. By the way, Benjamin Netanyahu's people provided them a script with questions to ask. And part of that was, why don't you talk about your favorite food choices while this man is starving 2 million people to death? Why don't you laugh and joke about it? I think they were trying to pull off something like the Theo Von with Donald Trump, and they maybe were trying to pull something like that off, and it just backfired so hard on them. But these are the kinds of things we need. If these people are left in the shadows, if we don't give them a platform, we won't really see with our own eyes how psychotic these people are. And I actually made up a term. These people are psycho-sociopaths. Okay, it's some kind of mutation of a disorder that these people are. Then you got AOC, who just got put on blast for being super hypocritical, claiming she wants to end funding to Israel, but then doesn't vote against applying money to fund their Iron Dome system because it's for defense. Are you kidding me? Meanwhile, we just got healthcare funding to millions of people because we need to save money. But somehow we have $500 million extra laying around to give to Israel's Iron Dome project. I'm going to show you a clip of Blakely reacting to this, but you got to go see the full thing. It's so funny.
What? Not just doubling down, now attacking people who are criticizing her who are mostly on the left. This is mass gaslighting. Those of us who are criticizing her know that she was voting against an amendment. And we're saying voting against that amendment in the year of our Lord 2025 is wrong, is unacceptable. And then getting up here on Al Gore's internet and defending this vote by saying, okay, so like we're funding the Holocaust, but like only the defensive capabilities. Every fucking genocide, by the way, in Holocaust in history was done under the guise of defense. This over the backdrop of her voting in favor of a resolution to affirm the insane IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which includes criticism of Israel. And you just want us to go into our corners and do partisan red team, blue team and shut off our brains because MTG was the one who introduced the amendment. And I know that you're trying to manipulate people with the, oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene's on the right, so like we should automatically oppose anything she introduces. But I can promise you this, the Palestinians that are having their entire family bloodlines wiped out, that are getting murdered as they try to access food aid, don't give a fuck what side of the aisle the people funding their annihilation is. And I don't give a fuck what MTG's motivations for introducing it. I don't give a fuck. What I care about is the fucking outcome. And no one, literally no one, should be funding to give a fucking dime of our tax dollars in 2025 to this genocidal regime. Not one fucking cent.
Okay, shit. Speaker Johnson is doing the same thing, playing the bipartisan game to protect and defend Israel, which Massey just called out. Republicans won't be lectured on transparency by the same Democrats who orchestrated one of the most shameless and dangerous cover-ups in history, Biden's obvious mental and physical decline. When they claim therefore transparency, roll the tape. They lied to America, blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me right now? He's talking about the Epstein stuff. This is a bipartisan issue. You trying to point fingers at Democrats Democrats right now is dumb. We know what this is. They are divided on domestic issues, but they will pretend to be divided to make sure that you don't get any answers about Israel or about the Zionist entities gutting our country, gutting our economy, gutting our values, protecting Zionist agrochemical companies from liability, protecting Zionist vaccine companies from liability. They seem to be super united on that. This makes me think of a book that Candace Owens recommended, this book by a Jewish author who goes into the most likely origins of Freud's theories of psychoanalysis, and it's called Sigmund Freud and the Jewish Mystical Tradition by David Bakan. And there's a chapter on the Frankist movement, which I never even heard of, but they're an offshoot of Judaism that converts to other religions without ever fully converting. And I'm just gonna read you this tiny little line. It says the climax of Jacob Frank's career, the founder of Frankism, came when he and all of his followers were converted to Catholicism with great pomp and ceremony. And the reason why I read that is because you're looking at AOC, who's making these weird votes, even though on the surface she's saying she's pro-Palestine and she's against the genocide and she wants to stop funding to Israel right now, etc. Even though when push comes to shove, she still sort of supports funding Israel. So I looked her up and wanted to see if she was a Zionist or if she got funding from AIPAC or any Zionist lobbying group. And so far, her record looked clean, on the surface. And then Max Blumenthal posted this, where he says AOC's career was launched by two Israeli venture capitalists, Joe Rabi and Chennai Yerushalmi of Gage Strategies. The origin story is left out of her bio, but suggests an Obama-esque trajectory towards national power. As with Obama, the signs of sellout were always there. They just weren't necessarily on the surface. And then someone drops this clip of AOC. You're not going to believe it.
One of the things that we discovered about ourselves is that a very, very long time ago, generations and generations ago, my family consisted of Sephardic Jews. The story goes is during the Spanish Inquisition, so many people were forced to convert on the exterior to Catholicism, but on the interior continued to practice their faith, continued to be who they were.
Continued to be who they were. On the exterior, they had to convert to Catholicism, but on the interior, they remained who they were. I don't know about you guys, but that makes me really uncomfortable because it just sounds like you're converting into another religion, but you're faithful to your original religion, so basically you're deceiving us via religion. That is in itself satanic. So what is she exactly? And then it puts into perspective the reality that our politicians are always united, directly or indirectly, when it comes to policies that protect Israel, even at our expense, domestically or internationally. How about how sus JD's background is?
After he graduated from Yale, JD went to work for Thiel, then founded his own firm with backing from Peter Thiel. Then Thiel funded his Ohio senator campaign as he broke into politics. Then he got him a private meeting with Donald Trump to secure the endorsement that got him his Senate seat. And now look at him. He's the vice president of a campaign that was, of course, also funded in part by Peter Thiel. But then there's also his book that no one knows who wrote. Several journalists have tried to uncover whether or not J.D. Vance used a ghostwriter, and let's just say that people all seem to be pretty tight-lipped about it. But Netflix figured that they'd turn it into a box office hit right before you needed to know about the new vice president, J.D. Vance. A relatable guy from a poor hillbilly family in Ohio. Just a good old Scots-Irish hillbilly, just like you and me. Except that when the government of Ireland tried to claim him and conducted a massive genealogical study to celebrate the Irish heritage of the vice president of the United States, they were not able to find any record of that ancestry, which was kind of weird. And I mean, JD seems cool enough to me, for a politician.
Who are these people? Where are they coming from? I think JD Vance also changed his name a couple of times. Is AOC really a Catholic? What is going on? The litmus test for people entering our government needs to be, do you support Israel point blank? Because we can't know. We can no longer know who's who. We can no longer know if you're really a Christian. We can no longer know what your background is. We don't have time to look up your lineage and stuff. So really, we just need to get really strict about the litmus test. Do you support Israel? And if you can't say no straight away, something is wrong. You have to be able to say that Israel has committed a genocide. You have to literally say that it's not just Benjamin Netanyahu, it's the entire state of Israel, because 80% of the population there think that Bibi is doing enough or maybe not enough to get rid of the Palestinians. Now they're annexing the West Bank. So no, we're not going soft on this. It's either you're against Israel and for America, or we're not with you, straight up. And not to mention our president. We have Donald Trump doing the absolute most to distract us from the Epstein files. Like, how far are these people willing to go to protect Israel, and who are they? Personally, I don't need anything else to know that Donald Trump is in those files and he was probably an Epstein client. If not as a client, a partner. I also believe that he probably abused minors. I'm not on the fence about that. We're like, most likely he didn't. No, I think most likely he did. No one will convince me that a man who sexualizes daughters with his friends in public casually is not a pedophile. I mean, we've all seen the clips by now floating around. It's circulating all over the internet, like these, right?
You know about sexual predators and things like that. Right. I mean,
you are one.
All right, I was going to say that, but it's
a very nice figure. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know.
Ivanka, what's the favorite thing you have in common with your father?
Either real estate or golf.
Donald, with your daughter?
Well, I was going to say sex, but I can't relate that.
If I weren't happily married, and, you know, her father.
My daughter, Ivanka.
Yeah.
She's 6 feet tall. She's got the best body.
By the way, your daughter.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall. She's almost 6 feet. You going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. Can you believe it?
I'm sorry, but she's been voluptuous since when exactly? She's always been voluptuous? Since 13, since 9, since 4, since 17? Like, when was she? When did her voluptuousness begin? Listen, are we making this normal for dads to talk about their daughters like that with their friends? Or we're just gonna like brush this off as locker room talk now? And it gets even creepier when he says this about his newborn baby, Tiffany.
What does Tiffany have of yours, and what does Tiffany have of Marla's?
Well, I think that she's got a lot of moral. She's really a beautiful baby, and she's got Marla's legs. We don't know whether or not she's got this part yet, but time will tell.
I don't understand what these women are doing here. If I'm sitting in an interview and my husband is talking about my baby's beautiful legs and her breast that's not yet developed, what? Then it gets stranger. Okay, I actually got in a fight with Grock, a little fight with Grock over this. Elon, or whoever is controlling X, is now programming Grock to lie, to cover for pedophiles, I think. Especially after the Mecha Hitler glitch. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but X was reprogrammed by somebody to sort of say things that go against mainstream narrative about the Jews, about World War II, etc. This is what Grock and I got in a little fight about. So somebody posted this picture, and it goes, is this picture of Trump with a Miss Teen USA pageant contestant real? And you can see Donald Trump looking at her breasts. And here's what Grock says about this picture, okay? Grock goes, the photo is authentic, but misattributed. It depicts Donald Trump kissing his daughter Ivanka, age 11, on the head at the 1993 Harley-Davidson Cafe opening in New York City, not a Miss Teen USA contestant. And the source is Reuters. Fact check. Excuse me? You're looking at this picture and you're telling me that that's Ivanka Trump? Anyway, why is Grock lying, and who programmed it to tell these kinds of egregious lies? Grock even doubles down. So somebody goes, Grock, we have eyes. We know what Ivanka looks like as a teenager, both before and after surgery, and shows these pictures. And then Grock doubles down and he says, well, no, the photo is indeed Ivanka at age 11 in 1993, before any cosmetic surgery altered her nose and jawline, as your images illustrate. Getty Images and Reuters confirm it's from the Harley-Davidson Cafe opening in New York City, not a pageant. No evidence suggests otherwise. And then provides a link. Okay, so now I start going back and forth with Grock. I'm not going to post the whole back and forth here, but Grock kept doubling down. So finally, I had to stop, do my research, create a collage, and just literally put Elon and Grock on blast. So I post this on my personal X account and I say either Elon Musk is not in control of X anymore or he's gaslighting public so hard about the Epstein thing because Grock has officially become a hardcore liar. Rebooted Grock is trying to convince you that Donald Trump is kissing his daughter Ivanka on the head. And here's a link to the Guardian article, and then I provide a link to the Guardian article showing where we got these pictures from. I'm like, this is not a kiss on the head. That's number one. And that's not his daughter. And finally, after I provided that collage, Grock concedes and says to me, the photo is from the 1991 Look of the Year contest on a yacht showing Trump kissing a teen model on the cheek, not Ivanka. Previous Grock, you mean the one from like a few minutes ago, misidentified it based on similar images. Sources, the Guardian investigation confirms the event involved teen contestants aged 14 to 19, which was not enough for me, so I went in a little bit harder and I post, so after I heckled Grock about this over and over, Grock's new response is this, and I post what his response is, which I just read to you. And then I go on to say, this is rebooted Grock, folks. Gaslighting, and then changes the story if it's cornered. Do not trust this history-changing machine. This is now going to be in charge of our information. And then Grock says again to me, I do appreciate you pointing this out. My earlier responses misidentified the photo based on similar images upon verification, yada, yada, yada. And I will have this thread posted on my Political Newbie X account, which will be in my description, so you can go check that out if you want to see it a little bit like closer. But Grock is a liar. Let's just put it that way, okay? And he's programmed to protect pedophiles in some way, to me. Now you have to couple all of these photos, right? Especially this pageant photo, this weird interaction you just saw, with Trump's own words.
I mean, some of these foreign girls, you know, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now,
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
you're like
everything
a
is
doctor.
good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women.
There's no men back there, and I just go back there because I'm the owner. And you just see these incredible women naked. And now, think about all the pedophile parents and family members and friends and strangers, all the variations of pedophiles that are currently in operation right now must be extra emboldened watching Donald Trump run such hard cover for the most notorious one of them all. If there are child and teen victims out there who are watching this go down, imagine how much darker the world has just gotten for them. And this goes both ways, okay? I just realized recently that moms do something similar with their sons, where they kind of sexualize the mother-son relationship. It's a thing. So you have fathers sexualizing the daughter-father relationship, and you have moms sexualizing the mother-son relationship. Listen to this clip.
Innocent's deleted TikTok post. A woman named Clarissa posts, maybe in another life. Words can't describe how much I love you, Hayden, and how I am so proud to be your mother. We shared tons of memories together, and sometimes I wish I was your lover. My fault for making you attractive. Born to be your lover, forced to be your mother.
I'm speechless. I don't know, lots of people are gonna say until you're a parent you can't understand being sexually attracted to your children, but no. No. In my eyes, this is on the spectrum of pedophilia. It's fucking disgusting, and I'm not gonna apologize for it. Okay? Everybody seems to be into it. It's a fad, and I have come across so much madness from like the Podesta stuff that's been going around, and the Pizzagate, and the paintings that Podesta had in his apartment or his house, I'm sorry, and in his office, and the spirit cooking stuff that Daryl Cooper was talking about. I am just so very sorry, but it is so dark how pervasive the evil is. The evil of pedophilia. And then Kim Iverson just dropped an episode with this man who was talking about how serious it is that our laws are not even designed properly to protect kids from predators. We don't have judges trained to deal with this. We are not protecting our children. And right now we have cops on the street just like beating up people. On orders from who? We cannot submit ourselves to a government of pedophiles. I'm sorry. Why are our law enforcement people, why is our military, our fellow citizens, why are they taking orders from a government of pedophiles? Why? Before all of this, noticing all of this and this mass awakening, I was in the dark about this. I actually thought the law enforcement agencies were like doing a good thing in that we were cracking down on pedophilia. And when I started hearing all those things that was going on in Korea, where they're drugging women in these like fancy bars and stuff and taking them to like the nearby hotels, and I just thought, wow, I was kind of shocked. I'm like, well, at least America like takes women's rights and children's rights and tries to protect them from this kind of predatory behavior. I was so in the dark, and this was like, I don't know, earlier this year, not that long ago. I actually stopped watching K-drama because I was shocked to see that there were actually like K-pop stars and actors involved in this, in drugging women and raping them and all of these weird underground stuff where they're just, it's just wild. Now I'm discovering that America is the child trafficking capital of the world. And I kind of like got wind of this from Ryan Mata a few months ago when he was talking about this, but I thought maybe it was like a little bit hyperbole to some degree, but no, it's legit and even worse than that. We are by far, there's no one even close to competing with us. We are that bad. So when you think about this mass awakening, what we're all sort of like collectively becoming aware of, the whole world is on the same page almost. It makes you consider what Eric Weinstein, a Zionist no less, said on the Diary of a CEO podcast recently. Listen to this, it's gonna blow your mind. Wow.
There's a doctrine called hybrid warfare, and I think it came out of the US in the early 2000s. And it says that the kinetic component of warfare, the killing, the actual shooting and the planes and the bombs and all this kind of stuff, is not the major component. The social media is really important. The video is important. The mimetic complex is important. And Israel has an advantage over the Gazan Arabs in kinetic warfare. And Sinwar knew that. And he was like, brilliant. All we need to do is force Israel to come after us. And for better or for worse, Bibi just couldn't figure out where he was. And Bibi was dumber and Sinwar was smarter. What he did was he architected a situation in which Israel would be compelled to respond using the wrong tools. He tricked Israel. I'm very confident to talk about this because if you check my old tweets, I say IDF-assisted suicide and Munchausen by proxy and Zugzwang, right? And I said, these are the concepts, familiarize with yourself because Israel is going to invade Gaza. And I knew what was going to happen because it took me, like, why would you do this? It doesn't make sense from first-order logic, but third and fourth-order logic, you're like, oh, of course it makes sense. This is hybrid war. The most important thing for Sinwar is video.
Why?
Look at the effect of the video. The video of Gaza has turned the world to an extent against Israel that's sort of inconceivable.
So essentially what he's saying here is that little old Hamas was extraordinarily effective at baiting the otherwise moral, noble Israel into a genocide that it's still conducting 2 years later after having plenty of time to reflect on how it was duped by Yahya Sinwar. So even after reflection, it's just continue being stupid. It has no ability to get smart and say, wow, this is dumb. The whole world is turning against us. Let's stop. They're not even smart enough to like midway be like, you know what, this is a bad idea. Sinwar, we're not going to let you turn the world against us. And we're going to stop committing this genocide now. According to Eric Weinstein, they're not smart enough. Hamas was like, you know, it's now or never. By the grace of God, we have to show the world how chaotic and sloppy Israel truly is. And so October 7th happened. By Weinstein's logic. So I don't know, did Hamas really intend to unite the globe against Israel by exposing them? Because the globe is united. Did Hamas really intend to expose the hand of all the Zionists in governments across the globe who have this blind, unconditional loyalty to Israel, who are writing policies that govern our speech, writing laws to shield their pharmaceutical and agrochemical companies from liabilities, diluting the cultures of our countries with open borders and robbing it blind, etc., etc. Did Hamas really intend to expose all of this? Is that what Eric Weinstein is saying that Hamas did? Because Bibi is dumb.
For better or for worse, Bibi just couldn't figure out where he was. And Bibi was dumber and Sinwar was smarter.
Now, what would Weinstein's assessment of the majority of Israel agreeing with how Bibi is handling the genocide? Because it's not just Bibi. Do we have an entire state of like dumb people here? Is that it? What is Weinstein saying to in the Diary of the CEO? Someone translate. But on top of that, so much more has been exposed. We're all now seeing how sloppy and perverse in their taste of sex and death our leadership class truly is, and all we needed to do to see it was stop what we were doing long enough to pay a little extra attention. I mean, look at what's happening with the Macron situation, with Brigitte and Emmanuel. Now they're coming after Candace with this sloppy lawsuit to cover up their perversions. What the fuck is going on? And yes, this all worked when we weren't paying attention, but we're all paying attention now. Is there no way that they can get smart and do something better, have a better strategy? Sigmund Freud really didn't teach them anything about human psychology, because they really think all of this stuff is going to work. All of this gaslighting is really going to work. It works if we're not paying attention, yes, but if we're paying attention, it's not going to work. Just imagine how sloppy it gets here as Chris Cuomo and Stephen A. Smith trying to convince us that we don't have a satanic pedophile cult with a blind allegiance to a pedophile protecting country, Israel, running our government. You're not going to believe it until you see it, and I'm going to show you.
It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I could give a damn about the client list, the Epstein client list. This has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life. I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations. They're pissed off about everything. I'm like, really?
You can see the talking points have now actually hit the desks. So there's a lot of people that are now trying to regurgitate this vomit about, like, it's just not a big deal. It's so surprising anyone cares. And you can see that his cohort here is giggling. His handlers went and programmed some laughter into his protocol so that way they could try and, like, turn this into a joke.
With all the stuff going on in this country, with all the power that you possess because of the cachet and the influence you have because of your connection to this administration, that's why you upset at Trump. I didn't blame Trump one bit for looking at them and saying, really? That really matters to you? That's really that important? Now, maybe he had a different reason for saying it, trying to be evasive or whatever. I don't know. But I do know this. In the grand scheme of things, it ain't going to affect the lives of over 200 to 300 million Americans. I think we'll be just fine without knowing whether or not there was really, really a client list. I think we'll be okay.
It's just so disgusting. Here's America's reaction to what we just saw.
What? What? Like, I'm actually having like a fucking Scatman level meltdown right here.
Me too, a Scatman level meltdown because, yeah, what? What is this all about? Why are they imploding and humiliating themselves to protect this pedophile network? And I think there are three reasons. The first reason is they're mentally ill. They're deluded. They live in an alternate reality where they cannot relate to the average person like you and me, and they see us as animals or pets or batteries. I don't know. Their survival mechanism is somehow also self-destructive because their reality is so skewed. And this geoengineer, Dean Wigington, came on Jimmy Dore and explained the psychological aspect of our leadership class, which I think he articulated really well what I've been feeling about this phenomenon of stupidity among the elites, because it's hard to understand how people who are well-traveled, well-educated are so simultaneously stupid. And this is on the topic of all of these billionaires funding cloud seeding companies, which is pretty much the companies that are pumping thousands of pounds of poisons into the air and having it just rain down on us on the regular. Listen to what this guy has to say about the psychology of these people funding these kinds of projects.
Yeah, but people, Bill Gates has to breathe the same air that I have to breathe, right? So, Jeff Bezos has to breathe the same air. The Klaus Schwab has to breathe the same air. So wouldn't those people who are responsible for doing this and have been responsible for doing it for 80 years, wouldn't they be afraid of this? What do you say to this, Dane?
First, let me back up to the stated purpose of these operations. The covert label, solar radiation management, light scattering particles in the atmosphere slow down some of the sun's incoming thermal energy with no consideration of the consequences. We know it's being used as a covert weapon of war. Yes, crown jewel weapon of military-industrial complex. And we know the entire system has been designed, the official air quality system, not to show this mountain of contamination. All official air quality testing is PM10, only occasionally PM2.5. These particles are inconceivably smaller. Again, you can fit 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. And in regard to the consequences for the controllers, those who print the money, that's ultimately who's behind all this. Elected officials are simply puppets in the play. What else have they done to themselves already? Are we dealing with sanity? Answer is no. So we have 2,400 nuclear bombs detonated all over the world. That contaminated everything. You guys might remember these terms, Project Starfish Prime and Project Fishbowl. That's the detonation of hydrogen bombs in the magnetosphere that they thought could collapse the entire atmosphere. Did that stop them? No. So again, we know from psychoanalysis, and this is right from the manual, there's a common thread with those in power, and it's this. It's like a headless, heartless, soulless cancer. But the exact quote from the manual is that they have a near total lack of comprehension as to the consequences of their actions, even to themselves.
Even to themselves. Yes. Who has said it better? He nailed it. Geoengineer Dane Wigington nailed it. So that's the first reason, right? They just can't help it. They're deranged and self-destructive, so their behaviors can only make sense within that context, and we're essentially going down with them, right? Because we're their experiments, we're their play toys. The second reason why they are literally imploding and humiliating themselves to protect the Epstein network, and obviously I don't mean people like Stephen A. Smith and Chris Cuomo and these people on the bottom here that's stupidly participating in this. I'm talking about, the people like the Macrons and the Thiels and the Trumps. Too many financiers, heads of corporations, people in our government that are protecting the finances of the elites, covering up the robbery of the American people, and all the citizens under Zionist leadership around the world are implicated in the list. It's just not pedophilia. Right? It's about financial control. I'm currently reading the first installment of Whitney Webb's latest Epstein series right now, and she's dropping a lot of names. Everyone's involved. And the last line of this article is a major cliffhanger for the second drop, which hopefully comes very soon. But listen to this. At least one figure in the Trump administration, aside from Trump himself, may stand to benefit from the administration's failure to release the lion's share of the Epstein-related documents in the government's hands. As will be detailed in the second article in this series, a close friend of both Donald Trump and Flavio Briatore, who she provides a lot of information for in this article, currently plays an outsized yet quiet role in Trump administration foreign policy, in addition to having unsettling yet largely unknown ties to the Epstein scandal. And I think she also says in this article that Epstein was like on the managerial level. There were people obviously above him. I can't wait for Ian Carroll, James Lee, and the like to sink their fangs into this series. I cannot wait. But here is a senior FBI agent, Michael Fineberg, that Kash Patel recently fired as they cleansed the government of, I don't know, people who are not loyal to Donald Trump's mission, which right now is protecting pedophiles and the white-collar crime syndicate. I don't know, but listen to what he has to say about what's happening right now in the FBI with the firings that's going on and what it seems like they're protecting.
Look, I don't think the Department of Justice has made a secret that it's not really interested in prosecuting white-collar crime anymore. The head of the criminal division, the Assistant Attorney General at DOJ, specifically said that white-collar enforcement is not good for American businesses, so we're going to pull back from it.
What he's referring to here is the remarks from the Assistant Attorney General Matthew Galiotti, who made these kinds of remarks in policy documents back in May this year. Here are some of it. It says the division's policies must strike an appropriate balance between the need to effectively identify, investigate, and prosecute corporate and individuals' criminal wrongdoing while minimizing unnecessary burdens on American enterprise. We have to minimize unnecessary burdens of American enterprise. What's an unnecessary burden? And if you're doing your investigation and it is causing an unnecessary burden on American enterprise, then what do? This is what else he says. While particular facts and circumstances may require an investigation that spans multiple years, prosecutors must take all reasonable steps to minimize the length and collateral impact of their investigations and to ensure that bad actors are brought to justice swiftly and resources are marshaled efficiently. So, swiftly, like how fast Epstein was killed or committed suicide. That was nice and quick. Case closed. We don't have to cause an unnecessary burden to American enterprise and all of the financial networks implicated in Epstein's criminal doings. This is so transparent what they're doing. They're literally saying, we don't want to hurt American enterprise. So, we're going to go lenient on white-collar crime. I don't know if you have a different interpretation of this, let me know, but this is what I'm seeing right now. And then he goes on to say, most corporations and financial institutions want to play by by the rules. Oh, yes, they do. And they want to provide value for their shareholders and their customers. Excessive enforcement and unfocused corporate investigations stymie innovation, limits prosperity, and reduces efficiency. Unfocused corporate investigations? I don't know, like what? What do you mean? Like investigating Epstein's network? Is that unfocused? If we start pulling out the list and we go through all of the networks, and is this going to stymie innovation and limit prosperity and reduce efficiency? So let's limit that. Let's minimize that by, I don't know, gaslighting the American people and telling them that there is no list, but then telling them that there is a list, but it's a hoax, and then saying that we're not even going to release the hoax list. If anything, release the hoax list. Or first they want to like say, oh, look at what Obama did when he like altered documents to try and sell the American public on the fact that Trump was involved in the Russia gate. And then we'll be like, okay, all this Epstein stuff, Obama did that too. I don't know if that's their strategy, but it's like so stupid and so kindergarten. It's so dumb. Nearly our entire government is interested in burying this because about 95% of our government is Zionist or Zionist control. And obviously, yes, some of them will be given the green light to go against the grain and be like, oh, we want to see the Epstein list. But you will never have a majority, because under no circumstances will the Zionist handlers allow our government representatives to have a majority vote to release the files unless the files are a scam. So the third reason that I think that they are literally imploding and humiliating themselves to protect the Epstein network is this, and Carlson says it.
Can I say one thing that has always struck me about this case and why I think it's like revealing of the entire power structure in the United States? Epstein, and there was public testimony from women who lived with Epstein to this effect. His contempt for Americans, sort of normal, middle class, working class Americans, he did not see them as fully human. He didn't. And at all. So it's like molesting, a high school girl from housing development or a trailer park in South Florida doesn't really count as molesting because she's a prole. Like, who cares? Yeah. And that attitude suffuses our leadership class. Like, that is their attitude. Yeah, 100,000 people die of fentanyl ODs. Yeah, but I mean, people. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's sad, but it's not an emergency because they're like people you would never meet and you don't really care about. Just building their fucking dollar store in their town and like nobody cares about them.
The elite class do not see us as people, and they are not capable of thinking that they're doing anything wrong. They think we think they're doing something wrong, but in fact, we are the enemy. We're the villains of their story. This is why the Macrons are suing Candace right now. They're feeling like they're being oppressed by us, by calling them out for their perversions, for their lies, for their satanic affiliations. We're oppressing them by asking questions and paying attention. It's why Donald Trump will lift sanctions off an actual terrorist, al-Jilani of Syria, in pursuit of protecting the interests of the elite class, and impose sanctions on UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese, who wrote a report recently exposing the financial networks in this genocide economy. And best believe, Epstein's money is definitely a part of the Israel project.
The report does name almost 50 complicit corporations, and it goes in depth, explaining how these businesses help uphold Israel's ultimate goal of expelling Palestinians from their land and replacing them with Jewish Israelis.
You don't need to be an economist or a mathematician to understand that there is something deeply wrong or deeply puzzling with a stock exchange that has amassed $220 billion. While the Israeli economy had started to nosedive. And just in the last month, meaning between the end of May and end of June, the gain of the Israeli stock exchange has been of $70 billion. Why? Because Israel has been selling to other countries in the period of the rush to rearming what it has tested militarily and in terms of surveillance services and technology on the Palestinians in Gaza, first and foremost. This is the world in which we live in.
That the economy that you are tracking here with this report is incompatible with the existence of international humanitarian law. And I think that this crisis is really now coming to a head where these players understand that if they're going to continue to pillage, if they're going to continue to make these super profits off of automated weapons, off of, grabbing resources from occupied territories, whatever it is, international law itself can't really exist. Like Peter Thiel, who founded Palantir, he says that he thinks maybe Greta Thunberg is the antichrist. I've said this before, but I really think you should understand, like, we should take them at their word that their idea of the apocalypse is the enforcement of international law, right?
Totally,
And
absolutely.
so the attacks on you, I think, have to be understood within that context.
Like I said, we are the enemy. Law is the enemy. And as she also said, Peter Thiel is calling people like Greta Thunberg the Antichrist. And that's who we should be worried about.
It's the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century, where the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. People are way too scared for that. In our world, the thing that has political resonance is the opposite. Yeah, I don't know. In the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
In our world, is far more likely to be Greta Thunberg. Look, I don't know why the billionaires that we see don't look healthier than that, but anyway, that's besides the point. What Peter Thiel is implying here is that activists like Greta Thunberg, who want to stop fossil fuels and cut emissions and prevent climate catastrophes, little does she know that weather control funded by billionaires probably has a lot to do with the climate catastrophes she's warning against, represents a new kind of antichrist figure. Someone who gets in the way of innovation and ushers in stagnation under the guise of saving humanity. That is the argument that Peter Thiel is making in this clip that I'm also going to have in my X feed. You will find my X account in the description below. So activists who protest on the street to try and stop the tyranny of technocracy and the wanton killing of millions of people, as is their practice, they've been doing this for a very long time, including right now in Gaza, are the enemies to progress. The protesters. Peter is trying to convince us that we are the enemies to the salvation that he and his buddies can provide us, so we need to just get out of their way or understand that they have to crush us because we are the enemy to the progress that they are ushering in. Dumping poisons into our atmosphere, spraying poisons all over our agriculture, growing food in labs, trying to get rid of livestock because they're contributing to climate change. Mass buying up farmland, poisoning farmland with data centers that they're building all over the place. Now they're injecting vaccines into our bodies, into our livestock, that they refuse to release independent studies on. And it all goes back to the psychosis of all of this, right? That they're mentally ill. They live in a reality where they think if only they could explain it well enough, we'd be happy to live under an autocratic regime ruled by them. The geniuses of mankind. I think most of the geniuses are coming from the people that they're exploiting. But anyway, before I go, I want to touch on something that I used to believe, which is that voting doesn't matter. But I'm done with that. I now believe that voting does matter. And I don't agree with everything that Mamdani stands for, but I realize that he was able to shake things up because he got people to believe in their vote again. If we believe in our vote again, we could get these rotten people out of our government.
According to the New York Times, the 3 age groups that voted at the highest rates were all under the age of 35. We managed to register more than 30,000 new voters in the last 10 days. In 2021, that was at 3,000. So much of the work of protecting our democracy is not just fighting back against authoritarianism. It's increasing our faith in its ability to deliver on the needs of working people. And we can only see that if those people see themselves in those policies and they vote.
And they vote. I was one of those people who believed what everyone was sort of casually saying in passing, and that was that our votes didn't count. And I wonder if that messaging was designed to make us feel as if no matter what we do, nothing can change. Meanwhile, we actually have all the power in our hands to change what's happening. Could you imagine if they were trying to convince us that we don't have any power because they distracted us so that they can play their sloppy games and we thought that our country was just too divided? Meanwhile, they themselves are united, but they were dividing us this whole time. And I think we really need to start saying, you know what? We need people who are anti-Zionist, who are anti-Israel to run for office so that they could be listening to us, because I think those people will be listening to us. And we back them. We support them with everything we have. We as everyday citizens are the biggest, most powerful lobbying group there is. We can overpower AIPAC and all of the Zionist lobbying groups out there. We can. We just have to be united in getting people in office that are anti-Israel. All the other stuff, all the illegal immigration stuff, the open border stuff, the gender affirming care stuff, the vaccine stuff, all that we can deal with when we have anti-Zionist people in government. Because the Zionists and government are not going to vote to repeal the immunity shields for vaccine. They're not going to vote against the immunity shields for agrochemicals. They're not going to take mRNA vaccines off the shelves. They're not going to. Because this will disrupt the bottom line for all of these Zionist corporations. So there are some positives to pull from this. Canada just pulled the charitable designation from the Jewish National Fund. Francesca Albanese is out there holding it down. Thomas Massey is out there trying to get the files released, expose the financial networks. Zoran's out there showing us that the voting does matter, because if it didn't, he would not have won the primary because that's the last thing they want, is for someone who's speaking up so loudly about Israel to have the spotlight, especially in the Zionist capital of America, New York City. So come 2026 and 2028, we need to put our foot down that we are going against anybody who supports Israel point blank. At least that's my position. So, at the end of the day, did Hamas really wake the world up to the satanic grip choking the life out of humanity? And were the elites always this sloppy at messaging and cover up, but we were just too distracted to see it? Okay, I'm going. If I don't see you in the comments, leave me a thumbs up to let me know that you were here, and I can't wait to see you in my next episode.